Good morning, Raiders. Master Sergeant Heimericks here, your Career Assistance Advisor. And today, as promised, I want to talk to you about how to really excel at your job and really just in the Air Force as general. Thrown together a PowerPoint for you guys called a roadmap to Staff Sergeant and beyond, right? And it's going to be a guide to the squadron force distribution process and really just the requirements to really excel in the Air Force in general. So let's go ahead and swap over to the slide here. So as stated, a roadmap to Staff Sergeant and beyond, right? So we're going to be talking about a plethora of things here. So this will be a longer video for you guys, but I promise if you watch it through the end, it will give you a really good idea how to excel. So introduction, you know, in work always comes first, right? Continuous development, get an education, get involved. We're going to talk about the total force distribution process or the force distribution process. The elimination of time in service, time and grade when that happened a few years ago. Study habits and the PDG, MKTS, and the EPRRC. So these are tools on how to test for rank at the senior airman to staff and staff to tech sergeant level. General EPR points breakdowns and the importance of always checking your data verification record. So I'm not going to read all this, right? But, you know, I will read a synopsis of each one, but all of these slides are going to be saved in this group under the units tab. So you can actually go in there and pull it up at any time, but just remember that time when you achieved something super awesome, right? And you didn't do much without doing, or you didn't do much without basically achieving that awesome thing, right? So the answer to that is really no. Success is hinged directly on your ability to overcome roadblocks, whether it's time, your work ethic, your attitude, and really attitude being the biggest one. So nothing worth achieving is going to be easy. So we got to understand that a lot, you know, and one thing to keep in mind is a lot of people are here at Ellsworth Air Force Base and you really don't want to be here. Maybe some of you guys are from a big city and there's just not a lot to do out here for you, right? So I'll tell you, one thing to really focus in on is Ellsworth is a slow base, so it's a great opportunity to really focus in on what you came in for. You know, why did you join? What's your why? You know, and if you're a brand new airman, you know, once you're done with your CDCs, get in college, right? And maybe if it's not college, just start working on a professional or personal goal, because if there's one thing I can tell you, you're going to blink and your time here at Ellsworth is going to be over like that. Or even in the Air Force, you know, I'm coming up on 17 years and it's like I blinked and the time has just gone by so fast. So we're going to cover a range of topics, what you should be doing to get a must promote or promote now. And I put in quotations here correctly, right? I can promise you it's not going out shaking hands and bake sales and fundraisers and all that fun stuff. All that stuff does matter, right? What really matters is how good you are at your job. Work always comes first, right? So in order to make rank, you need to know your job. In order to get a top stratification during the Force Distribution Board, you need to know and be very good at your job. So get your hands dirty. Always step in and work, no matter how bad the situation is. So think of it like this. No matter where you go or what you're doing on the base, there's going to be AFIs, there's going to be TOs, AFPAMs, you know, in the maintenance world or CE world, UFCs, which stands for Unified Facility Criteria, right? And once your CDCs are done, if you want to get just very knowledgeable with your job, you need to get in those AFIs and TOs. Now, if you are an idiot like me, I can't just read something and retain it forever. I had to write flashcards. So when I was a young airman, I got in a whole lot of trouble, was almost kicked out, and I was ready to really just pull out of that, you know. And I met a senior airman. His name was Chris Powers, and he pulled me out of my slump, I guess you could say. And showed me how to really excel. So I'm really just passing on what Chris taught me. And so it started off with double lot 25-172. And for those of you that aren't familiar from the maintenance world, that's basically the flight line TO. So I started writing flashcards, and out of every paragraph that I found in double lot 25-172, there were probably 4 or 5 questions that I could write down on a flashcard that would help me retain the information that is inside of that TO. Now, while double lot 25-172 isn't really that thick per se, or too many pages, there's a ton of information in there. So at the end of the day, I mean, probably 250, 300 flashcards just out of that one TO alone, right? And that progressed into, different AFIs, like in my case would be 23-201 coming from POL. Maybe your vehicle maintenance, and it would be 24-301, 24-302, or if you are a B1 crew chief, it would be a -1 of some sort with a B1 TO. If you're finance or MPS, or if you're from the fire department, it doesn't matter where you are. Everything that you need to know to really be good at your job is online, whether it's in ETIMS or if it is in EPUBs, right? So ETIMS is for your technical orders, and then EPUBs is for your AFIs and your AFMANs, et cetera, so on and so forth. So let's say that you are from one of those career fields that, maybe it's obscure, or you have just a couple of people in your shop or whatever, right? What you need to do is go to EPUBs and go on the bottom where it says departmental, right? So you'll click Air Force, and then you'll click departmental, and then it's going to pop up a whole plethora of AFIs, and it's going to basically be 0 through whatever. And you'll notice that each one has a different number assigned to it. So basically, if you're logistics, you're going to be looking for a 23 series, or if you are looking for personnel, if you want to learn about decorations, EPRs, and awards, right? Look in your 36 series. And that also goes with assignments, BOPs, and all that fun stuff. It's all 36 series is personnel. So find that number that correlates to your job, right? Whether you're maintenance, medical group, it doesn't matter, right? Go to EPUBs, find your AFI, and then start reading it, and then actually start writing flashcards out of this. Now, you're not going to retain the information right away, but what will happen is that once you've written all those flashcards, you can actually go back and start flipping through them and then seriously commit it to memory. But this really brings us back to the first part of this, Do you want to be really, really successful? And if the answer to that, and I hope all of you, is yes, right? You're going to do what it takes to learn your job is just absolutely as well as possible, right? And it's not so that way you can just be the go-to person and be that awesome person that has this referent power because you have all of this knowledge and everybody's coming to you. It's so that way you can do your job really good, right? But more importantly, so that way you can train younger airmen whenever you're a senior airman, right? And so that way you can pass that information on. So it doesn't matter how smart a person is if they keep that information in their head. What matters is that you pass it on and give it to the younger generation so that way they can continue and do great things for the Air Force. Continuous development, right? So never stop learning. Get involved in the squadron and wing airmen or dorm councils and lead projects. There's this perception that the Active Airmen's Council, the Group 5-6, Top 3, Chiefs Group, whatever, you name it, right, is like a handshaker group, and I don't have time for that. I'm too busy doing my job or whatever, right? And I would be completely lying to you if I said that I did not have that same perception whenever I was a young airman, even a staff sergeant. But that perception was completely wrong. And here's why. So in 2014, well, really from 2013 to 2016, I was a part of the Ellsworth Wing 5-6, eventually was president. And it opened my eyes and really showed me how bad people need help with things across the wing, whether that be how to write EPRs, whether that be how to write decorations, or maybe just someone to talk to maybe they're going through a tough time, or let's say you need something done and you have a whole team of people underneath of you. And imagine picking up a phone to CE, right? Because you need something done in your building and you don't know who works in CE. So you just pick up the phone and you're like, hey, I'm just looking for help, right? And the person on the other end of the line, of course, they're going to help you. But imagine if they were your friend, right? Or your professional peer, you knew them. You're going to pick up the phone, you're going to call CE, and then it's actually going to be like, oh, hey, what's going on, brother? Yeah, I'll be right there. Let me help you out, you know? And then what happens is that your airmen get taken care of. So is every supervisor a rock star in the military? Absolutely not. And I'll be completely honest with that. Nobody wants to come to work and fail, right? Nobody wants to do a bad job, right? And some people are just bad people, right? So what you want to think of is that if you aren't getting the mentorship in your flight, this is whenever you need to latch on to an inspirational NCO and learn as much as you can from them, maybe from a different section, maybe from somebody that you met at an Active Airmen's Council meeting, maybe somebody that you met from a 5-6 meeting, etc., right? So whenever it comes to talk about DSDs, career progression, EPRs, decorations, and really just to how to be a good person and take care of your people, anybody can teach you that if their heart is in the right place. Professional development also includes public speaking, right? So as you progress, you will be expected to speak in front of very large crowds and to do so with confidence. Key word here is confidence, not arrogance. When MC positions open up, hop all over it. Commander's calls, holiday parties. If we had a Toastmasters organization, I would say do that as well, but we don't right now. The kicker is to do as much of the volunteer stuff as you can on your own time. Remember, work comes first. So if you are always out volunteering, right, or if you're always out doing things that take you away from your JOB, then your JOB is going to suffer. And I mean, at the end of the day, that's why we're here. But I think one important thing to remember is that as you become a staff sergeant, tech sergeant, and then master sergeant, you're transitioning from a really, really, really good technician to somebody that is going to lead a team of really, 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 really good technicians. And I think that's important to remember, is because if you don't take care of your people, you don't take care of your team, and and what I mean by that is that you're always there for them. They trust you, and they can come to you with problems, or whether that be personal or at work, right? And if you did your homework coming up through the ranks, based on what I was just talking about with the AFIs and the TOs, when you're a master sergeant, that information, that knowledge isn't just going to disappear. It might be a little outdated, but you'll at least know where to point people in the right direction. So the last thing you want to do as a leader, and I say master sergeant, but really this starts at the staff sergeant level, right, is that you want your people to come up to you and ask you questions, because you aren't the one that's out basically pounding the pavement anymore. You're not turning the wrenches. You're not doing the actual work, right? Those are the young airmen. As a staff sergeant, you're there to essentially grow and mold our airmen and learn how to become an effective NCO. Tech sergeant, you're supposed to be an expert at your craft, to where anybody can come up and ask you any question, whether it's a senior airman or a young airman or even a chief, right? And they're going to go to the tech sergeant and say, hey, do you know the answer to this? And it's okay if you say, I do not, but you got to get back with people. You got to know where to look. And that's really the key. Get an education. I cannot stress this enough. So my first 6 years of the military, I hated it. I jumped ship. I took 60 days of terminal leave, or if you want to call it terminal leave, not really, but just regular leave. Tried to find a job, and the best thing I could come up with was like $11 an hour or something like that. It was terrible. So when I got out of the military, I thought that because I did 6 years and I was a vet essentially at that point in time with a honorable discharge, that I would be able to get a job pretty much anywhere. And that isn't true. That's not true at all. And as a matter of fact, if you remember what I talked about before, was that I was almost kicked out. I hung out with the wrong crowd. And a lot of the friends that I grew up with were either kicked out or at their 4 or 6 year mark. They're like, I'm done with this. I'm getting out. Well, I still talk to these people, and the very large majority of them, probably 80 to 90%, wish they wouldn't have done that, because here I am 17 years later, thanking God that I did not get out, because I can retire at 38 years old, barely 38. And I got an education. I got my CCAF. I got my bachelor's degree. I'm working on a master's degree, and I'm doing it for something that's going to set me up outside of the military. Now, while that might sound a little self-serving, it's really not, because what you got to think about is you come up through the ranks and you get an education, right? You're going to get your general eds. It's going to teach you about math. It's going to teach you about percentages that you're going to use every single day, right? It's going to teach you how to public speak. It's going to teach you how to write. And if NCOs listen in on this, writing is like one of the biggest things that's going to help you propel your airman's career, right? How well can you write an EPR? How well can you write a decoration? How well can you write a letter of recommendation that's going to get somebody a job to become an officer? That's super important. So step one, are you working on your CCAF? Yes. Great. No, you should be. Because the Air Force is going to give you a bunch of free credits, essentially just for going to basic training and going to tech school, getting your CDCs done. That's free college credit that you've already done that you can apply for. With your CCF, all you'll really have to do is just get general eds, which is math, English, speech, maybe a social science, etc. Right? Here's another common misperception that I hear all the time. Is your CCF valuable? And you'll hear a lot of people say, no, it's a waste of time. And that couldn't be further from the truth. And I'm going to say this again, that could not be further from the truth. Now, if you separate with only a CCAF, you're still going to get a better job, right, than what you could have before. But the CCAF is a stepping program. What you want to do, it's a stepping stone, right, for the AUABC program. So whenever you have your CCAF done and you're applying it through the AUABC program, which is basically your associates to bachelorette, you can knock out right off the bat like 30 to 35% of your bachelor degree courses that were required. So think of a piece of paper, and in that piece of paper, draw a plus sign from the top to the bottom, and then from all the way to the left to the right, and you have 4 quadrants or 4 little squares on that piece of paper. And each one of those quadrants is a class. So if you take your CCAF and you apply it to a bachelor's degree program through AUABC, you could pretty much completely put an X in one of those quadrants or one of those boxes. Just put an X in there, make those classes go away. They're gone. You don't have to worry about them. How cool is that? And then on the top, another box, doesn't matter where, knock out about, I would say, 40% of one of those boxes. So you can get a bachelor's degree really, really fast. And as you're getting that bachelor's degree, you're developing your soft skills as a person, which will make you a better leader. You don't have to get it in something that's directly involved with your job. Another misperception, college is what makes people make rank. As a master sergeant, as I sit here before you today, that is not true. Will it give you a tiny, tiny, tiny little bump? Yes, but not nearly enough is to make senior in chief just right off the bat. To make senior, or really I guess these days, master senior in chief, you have to do a plethora of things, right? PCSing a lot, innovation, proving to a board of random people, 2 chiefs and a colonel that have never met you, that you take care of your people, you're getting it done, you're the person that's ready for that next stripe. And I'll do an entire PowerPoint on that at a different date. So it says, get your bachelor's in something related to your career field unless you 100% plan on getting out of the military. So I wrote this I wrote this PDF or PowerPoint probably a couple years ago. And this was before I saw how little education really takes effect to your board score, right? And this is more for tech sergeants going to masters to senior, et cetera. You have to have an associate's degree, no ifs, ands, or buts, right? And does it help you? Yes, a little bit, but once again, not nearly as much as what you think. But if you plan on separating, the smart thing to do is to get a bachelor's and a master's into a program that you plan on doing, that's something that makes you happy, right? To where you go to work every single day and you're not even working. It's not a job, right? So get your degree in something like that, because you're going to blink and you're going to hang this uniform up, and it's going to be time to transition, you know, and your legacy, your success is going to be how well you treated people beneath you and how well you took care of the airmen as far as fostering innovation and training people and helping them achieve their goals, right? Because that's what it's all about. They're going to grow up into the ranks, and they need mentors just like we needed mentors. I mean, as a matter of fact, just because you get out of the Air Force doesn't mean that you all of a sudden just stop needing mentors, you know. I'm a firm believer that we're self-actualizing every single day of our life until we're buried 6 feet under. Get involved. So you should be going to flight, squadron, and wing airmen's council and booster club meetings, mission permitting. Remember, job comes first. So once again, this kind of ties back to the Group 5-6 AAC top 3 thing, right? So like, why am I going to do that? Like, this has nothing to do with my job. But you got to remember, it really does, because you are not only helping out your squadron or the wing, right? Squadron airmen, wing airmen, but you're also improving your soft skills as a leader, as you learn to network, as you learn to basically hear out other people's side of the story. You see that there's a common trend amongst every airman in the military, and that's that we all struggle at certain things. Some people are really good at one thing, while other people are horrible at that same thing. Come together as a team, and then basically it doesn't matter what you are good or bad at, because everybody has strengths and weaknesses, you know. And that's when the Air Force starts talking about diversity. That's really the key to our success, you know, is diversity, but really overcoming that automatic judgment that you're going to have against people, and understand that we're all the same. We're all in this together. And if we want to be successful, we work with other successful people, and then we solve problems, right? So that brings us to the force distribution process. So you're getting involved in the wing. You've really taken a deep dive into the AFIs, the TOs, the regulations, right? And you've gotten involved in the squadron, the wing, and you're getting an education, and all these things are coming together. Before I talk about this, the first thing to remember is never forget to have time for you. It's a balance, right? So there was a time before I knew how to basically make time for me, and all I was doing was going to school, and I was jobbing it, and I was getting involved, and I didn't go fishing. I didn't do anything that I like to do. So I burned out. And when you start to burn out, what ends up happening is that you fail your team, right? Because you don't want to come to work, right? You don't want to go the extra mile because you're just burned out. And just, you don't have to be a staff or a tech sergeant to be burned out, right? You could be a brand new airman and burned out. So the most important thing to remember is to have time for you, to set aside time for you. And if you have a family, you have to set aside time for your family, right? Family first, because when you hang the uniform up, they're the ones that are going to be standing there with you, united, when this is all said and done. It's not going to be your subordinates or people that you trained and you mentored, and you might talk to them here and there on Facebook, but at the end of the day, it's going to be your family. So take care of your family, take care of yourself, find time to make sure that you are taking care of you, and everything else will fall in line. Anyway, the force distribution process. So every year, AFPC generates a list that is given to the military personnel section. This is MPS, right? So MPS basically takes this and they give it to your squadron CSS. This is called the Master Eligibility List, or MEL. So basically all this thing is it says who is eligible to make rank, right? And then who is eligible not only to make rank, but who is eligible to receive a must promote or a promote now. So depending on how many people you're competing against, whether it's a small or large unit, is going to be basically the deciding factor of what AFPC sends down to a squadron commander to say, here's how many people can get a must promote, and here's how many people can get a promote now, right? So all of this information that you need to know is in 36-2406, table 4.10. That's the EPR AFI. Ton of information in there. If you haven't read that, I would highly recommend doing that. You'll learn a lot of stuff. So a large unit is defined as any organizational structure, right, with 11 or more airmen. So basically what I mean by that is, let's say LRS, for example, because it's what I know best. And let's say that you have 11 senior airmen that are going for staff sergeant. Basically what's going to happen is AFPC is going to define that as a large unit, and they're going to send down that MEL, that master eligibility list, and say, hey, you can have 2 must promotes and 1 promote now based on what the chart says. And that can vary, like think of maintenance, right? How many people they have, and that could go from like 2 to 30 depending on how many people you have. So you always want to set yourself up to shine, right? To make your record stand out, to where you are going to work every single day, and every single line of your EPR saves time, money, equipment, manpower. Okay, so most of your units are going to have 10 or more promotion eligible airmen. So the majority of you guys are going to fall under this large unit consideration, right? But, cool. So we talked about AFPC and how AFPC has this master eligibility list, and they send it down to the MPS, and the MPS sends it down to your squadron. Squadron sends it down to your flight, and your flight superintendents basically say who their rock stars are in the flight. And then that goes all the way back up the chain to AFPC. And what happens after that, though? So large unit commanders are only going to review up to the last 3 of your EPRs in your current grade. This includes the EPR being considered, which is the current one, in 2 years previous to that. And they're going to look at your CERF. They're going to look at all your decorations. They're going to look at your PT scores, et cetera, so on and so forth. So basically, the smart thing to do is when you are coming up, right, if you want to make rank, right, and for starters, make rank to take care of people, please. That's the whole point, is so that way you can mentor and lead and help people out. But you want to make sure that your EPR, every single line, right? Think of ways to save time, money, equipment, manpower, how to increase morale, how to fix things, make things better. And every single flight within this entire wing has processes that can be improved, and it doesn't have to be this elaborate save the Air Force $18 million, It could be as simple as you come in and you're going through a continuity book, or you are going through your section, and you just have this one small little lane to focus on, but this small little lane has some hiccups. It has some glitches. It has things that you can do to make it better, right? So sit down with some peers or a team of people and brainstorm a way to find a way to make that better, right? And then once you've done that, capture it, and then find out how to tie a number to how you made it better, right? Did you save time? Did you save manpower? Which basically means that I didn't need this many people over here, so I fixed this process to save people's time over here so they could be better utilized over in this other place. That's manpower, saving manpower. And you can actually tie dollar amounts to that, because the Air Force has manpower surveys that they do triannually. And if you want to know what those are, you just call the manpower office and they can get you that. And then you can see that 1 man hour over at your shop equates to X amount of dollars, So when you have X amount of dollars over here, you can actually multiply that, for a day, and then for a week, for 2 weeks, a month, and then 12 months in a year. And that's one person. But let's say that you saved all this time for 7 people. So then you take that one number you just figured out for one person and you multiply it by 7. And now you'll start to see how big of an impact that you are really providing. And right now, it's all hands on deck. When I first came into the military, people were tripping over each other because there were just so many people in it. It was right after 9/11 happened. And not to say that innovation wasn't important back then, but people could really fly under the radar. Whereas now you just can't, because we're at the point essentially with manning Air Force wide to where everybody has to have all hands on deck to make sure the mission continues, and not just really continues, but to make sure it's actually legit. We're there 24/7, 365, and we can basically kick ass whenever it's time to make things happen. So important thing to know is that you can do this 1 year, but you have to do this year after year after year after year, right? You have to separate yourself from the pack. So when you are, let's say you're a staff sergeant, and this is one thing that I would highly recommend all young NCOs is to go set on boards at the squadron, the group, and the wing, so that way you can see a whole bunch of bullets coming from all of these different places, and you'll start to see like, wow, these all look the same. Like every single one of these bullets look the same. Wait, but not quite. Look at this person over here, right? They're doing all this great stuff and it's written correctly, like saving time, money, equipment, manpower, and the impact is not just wing, but it's global strike and maybe even Air Force, you know. And you'll learn how to basically write effectively for your people, right? Or if you're not a supervisor yet, you'll learn how to navigate certain things that are going to be really important in certain things that are not. Nothing is a waste of your time ever. But what you do want to remember is that you only have so many lines on your EPR, and you want to make sure that each one of those lines is just boom, like, whoa, holy crap, that is awesome. It is a 9.5 out of 10, right? And basically the EPR grading scale, when you're boarding a package for someone junior in rank, it goes through a 6 through 10 scale. So 7.5 out of 10 means that you came to work, you did your job, and you went home. And I think it's important to remember that, because a lot of times what you'll see on EPRs and what you'll see on awards packages is all these huge numbers, right? And for the untrained person looking at that, you're thinking like, wow, this is insane, right? But really the person that's doing that, that's their duty title to do that, you know? And nothing against the contracting squadron, but when you look at their EPRs, or not their EPRs, but their awards, they oversee some serious business, you know? So how do you compete with that? And the point is that it doesn't matter if you are in contracting or if you are the airman in charge of your local snack shack. What are you doing to make that process better for the people beneath you that are eventually going to take your role, so that way the Air Force's personnel, all of us, can stay in this perpetual, I guess, circle per se, right? It's this constant state of training and being ready and making processes better, taking care of people, never looking down on anybody unless you are helping them up, and so many different things. If your heart's in the right place, you'll go far. So how many people are actually getting these top 2 ratings? Senior Airman Promote Nows, top 5%, right? Must Promote, top 15%. So the Promote Now obviously is the top one, Must Promote being top 15. And another thing I want to stress right here is if you get a promote, don't get bent out of shape. I've made every single stripe. I made Master Sergeant on a promote. A lot of people that I know have made Master Sergeant off of a promote. If you are a Master Sergeant running for senior, right, you don't have to have a stratification to get promoted. Does it help you? Of course it helps you. But is it a deal breaker? No, not even a little bit. If you are a senior airman going from senior airman to staff and staff to tech, what really matters is how much you studied. And that goes right back to what we talked about before. You have so much control. Now, if you got a do not promote, that's a totally different story. I'd like to have a talk with you, and I'll be your mentor, because I was one of those airmen years and years ago. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. It just means that I was misguided and my priorities were in the wrong place. So the rule is this: allocations are based on 5% of the total time and grade and time and service promotion eligible senior airman staffs. And well, what used to be techs going to masters, but now that's a boarding process, right? So basically that goes right back to that master eligibility list we had talked about, and it's all figured out already for the commanders, you know. And your CSS basically has all of this information, and they schedule the date for the commander, the first sergeant, and the superintendent to do this board, this force distribution board. So this all sounds like super fancy, but what's really happening is that the commander, the first sergeant, and the CEM are kind of going into the commander's office, locking the door, and putting all these EPRs out on the table, and they're hashing it out, right? And they're hashing it out based off of the information that's given to them from all of the flight superintendents across the squadron. So it's important to know that the commander will never, ever make a decision in a vacuum. That's the whole point of the chief enlisted manager being there. And the first sergeant is a recorder normally, right? They don't have any input. They just basically write down, you know, what the commander in chief, what the commander, not the chief, but really what the commander's decision was for who gets a promote, who gets a must promote, and maybe who can work and be better in this area, and who's doing really good in this area. They're the recorder, right? Whereas the chief or the senior master sergeant will talk to the commander and say, hey, here's why this person was marked all the way to the right. Here's why they are kicking butt, and kind of give the commander a better perception of the enlisted population. And obviously that senior chief is in direct contact with all of your guys' flight superintendents. So this is the actual list that's in 362406. So I have to stress that everything in the military, while it might seem foreign, it might seem totally left field, we stand on the shoulders of giants. Everything that you need to know in the military, for the most part, I would say 97% has already been captured. It's already been recorded. It's already been documented. It's already in an AFI. It's already in a TO. It's already in an AFMAN. Granted, we can make it better because times will change, cultures change, et cetera, so on and so forth, right? But if you want to navigate this crazy government Air Force bureaucracy you have to get into these AFIs and TOs so you can learn things like this. So this is table 4.10, force distribution allocation table. And this is for senior airmen. But so if you look up here, it says total eligible 11 to 12. So basically what's going to happen is that AFPC is going to tell your commander, you can select one promote now, and you can select one must promote, right? So let's say you are going up against, you have 30 to 37 people who are senior airmen that are eligible for staff. Now you can pick 2 promote nows and 5 must promotes. So that's how this list works, and it keeps going down and down and down and down. And good Lord, 498 to 500. I don't know who that is, but that's a lot. That's how that works. So, like I said before, you guys have got to remember a promote EPR is not a bad thing. What really matters is your ratings on the top part of the EPR, right? So if you are getting right down the middle on that, that's probably a problem. You need to have a conversation with your supervisor in the form of what's called an official feedback, Airman Comprehensive Assessment, right? And you need to have an initial one as soon as your rater becomes your rater. And then you need to have a midterm, right? So the initial one is to say what the rater expects of you. The midterm is saying how you did based on their expectations. And then it's time for your EPR, right? So when your EPR comes and you get some horrible ratings, right, you should never be surprised by that, because that communication is always supposed to be happening. Now, I would be completely naive, and we would all be completely naive to say that, to think that this happens all the time, because it does not, right? So what you got to know in 362406 is that it's just as much of the raidee's responsibility to request these feedbacks as it is the raider's responsibility to document them. So here's what I've done in the past. I will annoy the crap out of people, because people get busy. It's not that they don't care. It's just that people get busy. So if you generate an Outlook email and you send that to your supervisor, right? And 30 days have gone by, send another one, right? Because the AFI says they have to do it within a certain amount of time frame. And if they break that time frame, they're going over the required amount of time. All right, moving on. So elimination of time in service and time in grade. So this happened in 2015. The Air Force started the new enlisted evaluation and promotion system. 362406 was like completely overhauled with very little direction. And you're kind of seeing it now to where, it's 2020 and everybody Air Force wide kind of has a good grip on how this promotion system works now, finally, right? But it's still not perfect. And I will say from a personal point of view that every EPR system we have ever had, the system is not flawed. The system has never been flawed. It's us that are flawed. It's people not holding other people, or subordinates accountable, right? So if people are getting promoted that are always out doing bake sales and fundraising and all this other stuff, and they don't know their job very well, and these types of people are getting promoted, that's wrong. The system isn't wrong. That makes it wrong that the supervisor and other people are pushing these types of people forward, right? You have to know your job, and you can't be arrogant. You have to help people out. And just look at the NCO creed, look at the senior NCO creed, and maybe I'm going on a little bit of a rant right here, but we are here to take care of people so that way the people can take care of the mission. It's as simple as that, And are there going to be times where you have to make command decisions and make things happen right away without explaining why you are making this decision? Of course, I get that. Yes, absolutely. But does that need to happen every single day in every single one of anybody's decisions? No, nor should it be, because it's not effective. Because what happens is you start to lose trust. And once that trust is gone with your people, the tasker that you are asking people to do, it'll get done, but it's not going to be done nearly as good as what it could be if your people trusted you. So if your people trust you, and then there comes those times to where you need to get things done real quick, like in a hurry, the product is not only going to be good, but you're not going to get questioned. You're not going to get backlash. The whole change management process is so much easier, et cetera, so on and so forth. Take care of people so they can take care of the mission. And then that will eventually, as time goes on, reciprocate, right? As they grow up through the ranks, hopefully they'll do the same thing for their people, right? You blink, 20 years have gone by, you retire, and then you go be a Walmart door greeter. Crazy how it works. Study habits and the AFH1 study guides, right? Okay, so I guess before we get too far here, so you actually have a team of people, and it's command chiefs for the, we'll call it PDG, but really it's the Air Force Handbook 1. It's changed its name so many times throughout the years, it's hard to keep track. But there is a decision that is made essentially by top enlisted leaders saying, this is what we think is what people need to study for this year, right? I'll say it again. These top enlisted leaders get together and they say, this is what we think people should be studying this year, right? So if you sit back and you think, well, why would people even say that, right? Why would our top enlisted leaders even be doing that? Well, they want you to key in on what's important, right? For our country as a whole, for our Air Force as a whole. And this is all based on really the Secretary of Defense coming out with policies. And the Secretary of Defense, Secretary goes down to SecAF, Secretary of Air Force, and just keeps going all the way down through the chain, right? Is our mission, our vision, our goals, what the Air Force needs to get after in the next 5 to 10 years. And what the top and least listed leaders are trying to do is get senior airmen going to staff to tech, right, to key in on the most important thing that's going on in the world right now, so that way we can be as lethal as possible. And obviously when you study that stuff, you're going to know it better. You're going to be smarter. You need to plan to get 100s on each test. Is that possible? No, probably not, unless you are way smarter than I am. So, right? But to get an idea, when I made tech sergeant, I scored an 85 on my SKT, and I had to write around 3,000 flashcards to do this. Is 85 a high score? Sure, I guess, right? But am I a genius? No, not even a little bit. No, I'm actually an idiot. But the key to understand here is that I had to work my tail off, right, to write those 3,000 flashcards. And I made tech whenever it was one of the lowest cutoffs in more than a decade or 2 decades, you know. So if you want to make rank, you got to put that time in, right? And it's hard to put that time in when your heart isn't in the right place. And what I mean by that is, if you are a senior airman going to staff sergeant, are you tired of being told, you know, what to do and say it's all the things you're being told to do aren't right? They're not in accordance with AFIs. Maybe you see that people don't care. They're not looking out for you. And you're just tired of it. You're ready to fix it. This is how you fix it, right? You get that stripe, and then you make it better for the people underneath you. And this creates an entire culture of badasses. It really does, because it shows people what real leadership looks like. So moving on, we talked about how to get these high scores, right? It's the flashcards. It's going through, in this case, what's called the EPRRC, right? Or not the EPRRC, but actually the PDG study guide. And there's one online that I'll post in the link below of this video. So that you can just click that link. It'll take you over to the PDG website, and you can literally just read what that says and just do what it says. And I'll have another video that talks about the differences on what's really important versus what's not so important. That probably won't even be on your test. So don't waste any time writing a bunch of flashcards on those topics. So that's PDG, right? So the next thing is, well, your SKT, right? And then that is what's called the EPRRC, enlisted, I can't remember, enlisted performance requirement, something catalog. Hopefully I've got that acronym over here, but that is basically every AFSC in the Air Force. It will have a list of all of the AFIs and TOs with chapters that you need to study, right? So if you're over here in left field studying something about your job that's not even listed in the EPRRC, you are completely wasting your time. I mean, you're not completely wasting your time because you're getting smarter, right? And as you get smarter, you can help people out. But this is what it is. So it's, oh, thank goodness, right? The Enlisted Promotions Reference and Requirements Catalog. This one's from 2000 year, but it updates, if not every year, every other year. So I am prior POL. I'm a career systems advisor now, but when I was POL, I had to know 2FO51, right? In this case, going from staff to tech, or I'm sorry, but senior airman to staff. And if you are a staff going to tech, then you really want to look at your 7-level stuff. Right here, the ones that are highlighted in yellow, it tells me exactly what I need to study. So when you look in 23201, it has, geez, probably like 20 chapters, right? But this is telling me I only need to study chapter 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, blah, 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 right? And there's a couple attachments. So if I went through and I wrote thousands of flashcards out of chapters 10, 11, 12, 13 that aren't even listed here, yeah, I'm getting smarter and I'm learning my job better. But whenever it comes to taking your SKT, right, for making rank, I'm wasting my time. So in your CDCs, your 5-level CDCs, right, look at your volumes. And there are a couple of other AFSCs on here, right? So 2G, we got some 2 alphas right here. Unfortunately, this is just a screenshot, but if you guys are interested in this EPRRC, I can actually open this up and do an entirely different video. Just leave a comment in this video below and I'll take it from there. I'll do an entirely new video just based on this. So this EPRRC is your job. This is SKT. The Air Force Handbook 1, right, is for the PDG. So you know that when you go to test, you have to take when you go to test for rank, there's two tests. There's your job and there's the Air Force, right? So SKT and PDG. So you got all of these flashcards written first out of your job. So now you got to really key in on what the Air Force is looking for as far as the PDG goes, right? So here's the website. Write this down: studyguides.af.mil. Once again, studyguides.af.mil. And I'll leave a link to that in the description below. So what you can see is you go to listed promotion study guides, and then you've got, this is for 2019, but as time progresses, this is going to update with it. So Air Force Handbook Study Guides version 1, holy smokes, testing to staff sergeant, testing to tech sergeant. Click on that, and it tells you what you need to study. It's crazy, right? It's all here. We stand on the shoulders of giants. So the Airman Development and Testing Chart, ADTC, is used by the Air Force to identify the relevance of Air Force Handbook 1, right? So Airman, testable content for the Promotion Fitness Examination, PFE. I'm not sure why they're calling it, whatever. But as well as determine subject matter content for inclusion in applicable enlisted promotion study guides. That goes right back to what I was talking about before. Those top enlisted leaders are going in here and they're saying, this is what's important, this is what's not important. So this whole program right here, I've updated these slides, but it used to be called the MKTS, right? So if you're digging back through the MKTS on a PDG or the Air Force Handbook, don't do that anymore, because that's not the right way to study, right? Now you have to go to studyguides.af.mil and then follow this. Because if you use MKTS, you're going to be getting outdated information. You're going to be studying the wrong stuff. The test is going to come down the pipe. It's going to be testing day, and you're going to be like, holy smokes, I don't remember any of this. I didn't read any of this. Well, it's because you didn't, because it's not the MKTS anymore. The MKTS is being replaced by the ADTC. So general EPR points breakdown. So over the next few slides or screenshots are from MIPERS, basically talking about how the points are broken down. So listed performance report, EPR calculations for promotion to tech sergeant. This is whenever we still had time and grade, time and service, whatever, right? So all of this up here you can pretty much ignore, but I did want to show that this is how it used to be. It's done. We're no longer doing that, right? So we've moved over to the process that we have now, right? So EPR point calculations for promotion to staff sergeant and tech sergeant. Calculation of weighted EPR points are based on up to the last 3 force distributed EPRs in the airman's current grade, right? This is legacy, in quotes. EPRs are no longer used in the calculation of weighted EPR points. Just remember that it's your last 3 EPRs, right? So, and that goes right back to what we talked about before, what needs to go on an EPR. That talks about the commander basically getting information from AFPC. This is how many people you can give a must promote or a promote now. But how do you calculate all this stuff, right? So an airman E4, E5 with 1 tech time and grade eligible, blah, 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 right? So basically just remember that if you get a promote now, an airman E4, E5 with an airman E4, E5 with 1 time and grade eligible FD EPR, force distribution EPR, right? So the FD EPR accounts for 100% of the total EPR score. So let's say you are a senior airman going to staff or staff going to tech, and that first one you get is promote now, right? So basically what that means is that you get 100% of those points. So that first year is like your year. Do it, make it, get it done, right? Because the second year, let's say you get a must promote And then the third year you get a promote and you're not making it, right? What happens is those points start to average out and you get less points. Even if you get a strat, you get less points, right? So an airman E4, E5 with 2 time and grade eligible force distribution EPRs, right? These are the ones that are actually with commanders saying promote now, or promote, must promote, or promote now, right? That's a force distribution EPR. And if you have 2 of those eligible ones, the top one is going to account for 60% of the total EPR score, right? So what that means is that if you get a, let's say, promote, must promote, and then you get a promote now, you're not going to get those full points that you would think you would with that promote now on top. It's going to average out. Remember that, right? So an airman E4, E5 with 3 of them, right? So the top one will account for 50%. So as you can see, it goes 100, 60, and then 50. If you have any questions about that, leave a comment below, and I'll help you guys out. So 1 EPR on promotion file, right? You get a promote now. That's 250 points. Must promote 200. A promote is 200. So you can clearly see that your first EPR, if you get a promote now, you've got 250 points. And that is huge, right? So that's the year that you do not slack. If you get any promotion statement, right, whether it be a must promote or a promote now, you need to hit those books harder than you ever have. You need to hit them like you got a do not promote to guarantee that stripe. And granted, in life, nothing is a guarantee, but I'll tell you right now, if you've done everything in your power to study as hard as you can, and if you're a flashcard person and you're writing thousands and thousands of flashcards, your chances of making it are incredible. Whereas I've seen it sometimes to where people will get the promote now, it's their first one, and they're like, oh, I got it in the bag, I'm not going to study at all. And then, you know, the listing comes out and their name's not on it. And that will humble even some of the strongest people. So just know that. Okay, I didn't want to dive too deep in that last one because it does start to get really complicated for the purpose of this slide. But if you have questions about your EPRs, how the system works, or if there's a video that you want, just as always, just leave a comment in the section below and I'll create a video, or we can even do a Zoom chat where I'll work with you guys one-on-one. So this comes down, we're kind of getting towards the end, but you know, you have to know to check your data verification record. So what the heck is that, right? So your DVR is located in virtual NPF, right? So make sure all your EPRs are in there, make sure all your decorations are there. And if you're missing an EPR or a decoration, that's going to go up and it's not going to be calculated, you know? So you could have a promote now, and there's something called the PEC-D, right? Which is basically or file freeze date, which says, hey, this is it. Anything past this date's not going to be looked at for make and rank. So if you have a promote now EPR and you go past that freeze date, what's going to happen is that you basically just crapped yourself out of that. You'll have to jump through a ton of hoops. So you got to be on top of this way before that file freeze date. And if you are missing anything, you need to contact your CSS immediately, and they'll just ask for the EPR or the decoration. You'll give that to them, and then if they have MIL PDS access, they're just going to put it in right then and there. If they don't, they'll talk to the MPS. They'll put in what's called a case management system, or CMS case, over to MPS. That's how your squadron CSSs communicate officially with the MPS, is through a program called CMS, Case Management System. So if you're receiving a decoration, make sure it closes out prior to your static closeout date, right? So if you are, let's say, a staff going for tech, your SCOT date is 31 January, right? So if you have a Air Force Commendation Medal that closed out February 10th, that's not going to go towards the current cycle. It needs to close out well before that. So this one here is an example for a senior airman, but the same rule applies, right? So it says, no, don't bug the hell out of your supervisor about your decoration. If he or she says it's been written, leave it with that. There's a giant routing chain it needs to go through before becoming official. So when someone writes a decoration on you, your rater starts it, and then they push it up to usually your flight superintendent, or maybe even your section chief to your flight superintendent. And from there, it goes to the CSS. From the CSS, it goes over to the first sergeant to make sure that you don't have paperwork and stuff, because if you do, then they're going to ask, well, why are you writing a decoration? And then from there, it's going to go to the squadron CEM, who's going to look through the entire thing to make sure everything's accurate, right? And if there's phrases in there that seem like completely outlandish, he or she's going to be like, well, what's this all about? No, he's going to kick it back over, right? And then by the time it gets to the commander, everybody has done their due diligence. So really all the commander has to do is really say, is this good to go? Does this person deserve this accommodation or achievement or MSM, and should be as simple as the superintendent saying, yep, it's gone through the chain. We've all looked at it. Commander's like, okay, cool, file, boom, stamp, approved. And if it's a achievement or accommodation, now the squadron commander can do it. But if it's anything higher, it has to go to group and wing. So if you are curious of how and what you need to look for, basically go to MIPERS. MIPERS has everything you need to know. All of these screenshots are from MIPERS under, promotions tabs, and it talks about when, dates, how to do it, what to look for, etc., so on and so forth, right? So for this one right here, it's called File Build for Promotion Cycle 17E5, right? It says was accomplished on 10 February 2017. Promotion testing products were sent to the FSS personnel on 11 February 2017. DVR, right? Your data verification record we just talked about. It says DVRs will continually be refreshed until the file freeze date, which will be announced by the AFPC, Air Force Personnel Center, right? So if you're testing for rank, you need to start thinking 3, 4, 5 months ahead of time, right? With all your files. Are my decorations there? Does everything look right? I looked at my SURF and all my bases and my duty titles are good to go. They're all there. But if they're not, like I said before, pop quiz. Who do you ask? Awesome. You guys all said CSS. You're great. So they update your records and you are good to go. If it's not, what will end up happening is that a lot of people at this point in time are going to be requesting for their records to be updated. And there's only a certain amount of people. You would think AFPC, this giant conglomerate of an organization, would just have unlimited manpower, and that's not true. They have a select few amount of people that update this stuff, right? And as requests come from the entire Air Force to AFPC, it takes time, right? You're in a queue, and it takes time to get to your stuff. But what they will do is they'll continue to refresh every single day until the freeze date happens. And if your stuff isn't updated by the freeze date, then, well, you know what happens. Okay, we talked about all of this. This is basically just saying what the commander is responsible for, etc. So, okay, so let's wrap it up. I know this is a long one, but if you watch the entire video, you are going to learn a ton of stuff. And some of this stuff is going to be way over some of your guys' heads, right? And that's okay, right? If you want to know more, if you want to learn more, just ask the question. Seriously, the dumbest question is the one where there's no such thing as a dumb question, right? So you have to remember that you have to ask those dumb questions to learn, and that couldn't hold more true the higher up you go. If you want to take care of your people, especially me as a master sergeant, especially as the career assistance advisor, right? If someone's talking about a program at AFPC or they're talking about this new opportunity for airmen and I don't understand it, I am failing every single one of you guys by not asking that dumb question. So I ask it, and it turns out it's actually not really a dumb question. It's a question that a lot of people were thinking, but they didn't want to step up and ask, right? Because we all fear inherently of being judged. So you got to push past that fear, ask those dumb questions. And what I'm respectfully asking for you guys is to ask those questions in this video right here in the comments. And if I don't have the answer, I'm going to point you to the right person that does, whether it be MPS or a CSS or a chief somewhere. It doesn't matter, right? Because it's my responsibility, not only as the career assistance advisor, to groom you into leaders, right? It's also my responsibility as a senior NCO and as even an NCO and just big A airmen, right? We have to help each other out. We have to train each other. We have to mentor each other, and that goes up and down. And we really just have to take care of people, and it's as simple as that. But with that said, if anybody has any questions, just leave them in the comment section below, and I'll do my absolute best to get back with you. And aside from that, that concludes this one. And you guys have an awesome day. Know that Ellsworth or anything in your career, if it's going bad, everything is temporary in the military. It's going to go by. When you look back on it, hindsight 2020, it's going to go by like that. So keep your head up, keep pushing. And at any time, if you need someone to talk to, I am always available. Have a good day, guys.